The yellow streetlight flickered outside Maria Hernandez's condominium in Rosemead, California, on the night of March 17, 1985, casting eerie shadows across the parking garage as she pulled in just after 11:30 p.m. She had no idea that a figure dressed entirely in black was watching from the darkness, that evil itself had chosen her home that night, or that she was about to become part of a terror that would grip Los Angeles for months to come. When the man emerged from the shadows with a gun, Maria's screams pierced the suburban quiet, and though she would survive by playing dead after the bullet grazed her head, her roommate Dale Okazaki would be found inside their home, becoming one of the first known victims in what would become one of the most terrifying crime sprees in American history. Los Angeles in 1985 was a city already on edge. The Olympics had just passed, bringing international attention. But beneath the glamour, something sinister was stirring in the night. The attack seemed random at first, scattered across different neighborhoods with no apparent pattern. An elderly couple in Whittier, a family in Monterey Park, a widow in Arcadia. The victims appeared to have nothing in common except that they had been targeted in their own homes, their safest spaces violated in the dead of night. The police departments across Los Angeles County initially treated these as isolated incidents, unaware that they were dealing with a single predator who moved through the darkness like a shadow, entering homes through unlocked windows and doors, bringing terror to sleeping households. Detective Gil Carrillo of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department was among the first to suspect a connection. A Vietnam veteran turned homicide investigator, Carrillo had developed an instinct for patterns that others might miss. In the spring of 1985, he noticed similarities in several cases crossing his desk. The crimes occurred late at night, the perpetrator entered through windows or unlocked doors, and witnesses who survived described a tall, thin man with bulging eyes and rotting teeth. But what truly caught Carrillo's attention was the seemingly satanic element present at several scenes. Survivors reported that their attacker had forced them to swear allegiance to Satan, and pentagrams had been drawn at some location. This was not typical criminal behavior, and Carrillo knew they were dealing with something extraordinary and deeply disturbing. The media initially paid little attention to the scattered attacks, but as the frequency increased through the spring and into the summer of 1985, panic began to spread through Southern California communities. The killer seemed to strike without pattern, sometimes targeting elderly victims, other times younger couples, occasionally single women. The geographic spread was enormous, from the San Gabriel Valley to the San Fernando Valley, from Orange County to the Bay Area. No neighborhood felt safe. Hardware stores sold out of window locks and deadbolts, gun sales skyrocketed, neighborhood watch groups formed spontaneously, with residents taking turns patrolling their streets at night. Children who had played freely in their yards until dusk were now kept inside as soon as the sun began to set. Frank Salerno, a legendary detective with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, who had worked on the Hillside Strangler case, was brought in to partner with Carrillo. Together they began the painstaking work of connecting the dots between what appeared to be random attacks. The task force they assembled grew to include multiple jurisdictions, but cooperation was initially difficult. Different police departments were protective of their cases, reluctant to share information, and skeptical that one person could be responsible for such a wide range of crime. The killer's methods varied, sometimes using guns, sometimes other weapons, sometimes binding victims with whatever was available in their homes. The age range of victims was unprecedented, from children to the elderly, making it nearly impossible to predict who might be targeted next. The breakthrough in identifying a pattern came when Salerno and Carrillo discovered that many of the crimes shared an unusual ballistic signature. The same type of ammunition, relatively rare in criminal cases, had been used in multiple attacks. This evidence finally convinced the various law enforcement agencies to pool their resources and information. The task force established a central command post, and detectives began working around the clock, comparing notes, re-interviewing witnesses, and searching for any thread that might lead them to the killer who was now being called the Night Stalker by the media. The summer of 1985 became known as the Summer of Fear in Los Angeles. The Night Stalker struck with increasing frequency, sometimes attacking multiple homes in a single night. The randomness of the attacks created a unique kind of terror. There was no way to predict who would be next. Wealthy neighborhoods and working-class areas were equally vulnerable. The killer showed no preference for any particular type of home or family structure. Parents kept children home from summer camps. Families slept in the same room for protection. The sound of a creaking floorboard or a rustling bush outside could send entire households into panic. Witnesses who survived encounters with the Night Stalker provided crucial details that helped build a profile of the attacker. He was described as a tall, thin Hispanic male, with prominent cheekbones, bulging eyes, and notably poor dental hygiene. His teeth were rotted and discolored. He often wore all black and sometimes had a baseball cap with an AC/DC logo. Survivors reported a distinctive body odor, a combination of sweat and something sulfurous. His behavior during the attacks was erratic and unpredictable, sometimes methodical, other times seemingly impulsive. He would ransack homes for valuables, but also leave money behind. He showed both extreme violence and moments of bizarre mercy, sometimes allowing certain family members to survive while others were killed. The psychological profile that emerged suggested someone with deep-seated rage, possible drug use, and an obsession with Satanism that went beyond mere symbolism. The ritualistic elements of some crimes, forcing victims to swear to Satan, drawing pentagrams, indicated someone who genuinely believed in, or was fascinated by devil worship. This was not merely a criminal signature meant to mislead investigators. It appeared to be a core part of the killer's identity and motivation. Forensic psychiatrists consulted by the task force suggested they were dealing with someone who had likely experienced severe trauma in childhood and had developed a worldview where violence and evil were glorified. As August 1985 arrived, the pressure on law enforcement reached a breaking point. The mayor's office was fielding constant calls from terrified citizens. The media coverage was relentless, with each new attack making headlines and increasing public panic. The task force was working 18-hour days, following up on thousands of tips that poured in daily. False leads consumed valuable time and resources. Several innocent men were questioned and released when witnesses couldn't definitively identify them. The stress on the detectives was immense. They knew that every day they failed to catch the killer meant another family might be attacked. The investigation took a crucial turn when a 13-year-old survivor named James Romero III provided a vital clue. On the night his family was attacked in Mission Viejo, James had noticed an orange Toyota station wagon leaving their neighborhood. Though traumatized, the boy had the presence of mind to memorize part of the license plate. This was the first solid lead on a vehicle associated with the Night Stalker. Detectives immediately began running partial plate searches, looking for orange or light-colored Toyota station wagon. The search was complicated by the fact that the vehicle might have been stolen, or the plates changed, but it gave investigators something concrete to pursue. Meanwhile, the Night Stalker's confidence seemed to be growing. The attacks became bolder, sometimes occurring in neighborhoods where police presence had been increased. It was as if he was taunting law enforcement, demonstrating that he could strike anywhere despite their efforts. This hubris, however, would contribute to his downfall. In late August, he abandoned a stolen Toyota in a parking lot in the Rampart area of Los Angeles. A sharp-eyed parking attendant noticed the vehicle matched the description from news reports and called the police. When investigators processed the car, they found a crucial piece of evidence: a clear fingerprint on the rearview mirror. The fingerprint was run through the new Cal ID system, a computerized fingerprint database that had only recently been implemented in California. Within hours, they had a match. Ricardo Leyva Munoz Ramirez, a 25-year-old with a long criminal history of drug and theft offenses. His photograph was immediately compared to composite sketches from survivors, and witnesses confirmed this was the man who had terrorized their families. For the first time, the Night Stalker had a name and a face. The task force moved quickly to distribute Ramirez's photograph to all media outlets, knowing that public awareness was now their best tool for capture. On August 31, 1985, Ramirez's photograph appeared on the front page of every major newspaper in Southern California and was broadcast on all local television stations. Unaware that he had been identified, Ramirez had traveled to Arizona to visit his brother. When he returned to Los Angeles that morning and stopped at a liquor store, he saw his own face staring back at him from the newspaper rack. The headline read, "Night Stalker," above his photograph. In that moment, he realized the hunt was over. He was now the hunted. Panicking, he fled the store and attempted to carjack several vehicles in the East Los Angeles neighborhood. What followed was one of the most dramatic manhunts in Los Angeles history, though it would last only minutes rather than days. Ramirez ran through the predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, desperately trying to steal cars and escape. But the residents had seen his picture in the morning papers. They recognized him immediately. Instead of running in fear from the Night Stalker, the community turned on him. Manuel de la Torre, whose car Ramirez tried to steal, fought back and chased him down the street. Other residents joined the pursuit. Angela de la Torre hit Ramirez with a metal bar. Jose Burgoyne joined the chase with his son. Within minutes, a crowd of angry residents had surrounded Ramirez, who cowered on the ground as they held him for police. When patrol officers arrived at the scene near the intersection of Hubbard and Indiana Streets, they found Ramirez bloodied and begging for protection from the crowd that had captured him. The irony was palpable. The man who had terrorized Los Angeles for months, who had invaded homes and destroyed families, was now seeking safety from the very community he had victimized. Deputy Andres Ramirez, no relation, was among the officers who took him into custody. As they drove him away, residents cheered and applauded, their summer of fear finally ending with an act of collective courage. The arrest of Richard Ramirez revealed a troubled history that provided context, though never justification for his crime. Born in El Paso, Texas, in 1960, Ramirez had experienced a childhood marked by poverty, abuse, and exposure to extreme violence. His father was physically abusive, and Ramirez often slept in cemeteries to escape the violence at home. A crucial influence was his cousin Miguel, a Vietnam War veteran, who regaled young Richard with stories of violence and showed him photographs of his war crime. Miguel later shot and killed his wife in front of 13-year-old Richard, an event that profoundly impacted the boy's psychological development. Ramirez's descent into crime began with marijuana use in elementary school, progressing to harder drugs and petty theft by his teen. He dropped out of high school and moved to California, where he lived on the streets and supported himself through burglary. His drug use escalated to include cocaine and PCP, substances that likely fueled his violent behavior and paranoid delusion. His interest in Satanism developed during this period, influenced by heavy metal music and a desire to embrace what he saw as ultimate evil. This was not merely an aesthetic choice, but became central to his identity and his crime. The trial of Richard Ramirez became a media spectacle that lasted from July 1988 to September 1989. The courtroom was packed daily with journalists, survivors, and even fans, disturbing groups of young women who professed their love for Ramirez and sent him letters in jail. Ramirez played to the cameras, flashing pentagrams drawn on his palm and shouting "Hail Satan" during proceedings. His behavior was erratic and disruptive, requiring multiple delays and enhanced security measures. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence, fingerprints, ballistics, and testimony from survivors, who identified him as their attacker. The defense attempted to argue that Ramirez was insane, driven by drug use and childhood trauma to commit acts he couldn't control. They brought in psychiatric experts, who testified about his disturbed mental state and the possible effects of PCP on his behavior. However, the prosecution successfully argued that while Ramirez might be disturbed, he knew right from wrong and had made conscious choices to commit his crime. The evidence of planning, stalking neighborhoods, bringing tools to break into homes, wearing dark clothing to avoid detection, demonstrated awareness and intent. On September 20, 1989, after deliberating for 22 days, the jury found Richard Ramirez guilty of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. During the penalty phase, the jury recommended death, and on November 7, 1989, Judge Michael Tynan formally sentenced Ramirez to death, stating that his crimes showed cruelty, callousness, and viciousness beyond any human understanding. Ramirez responded with a chilling statement, "Big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disney." He was sent to San Quentin State Prison to await execution. The case of the Night Stalker left lasting impacts on Southern California and law enforcement practices nationwide. The importance of interagency cooperation became clear, leading to better information sharing protocols between different police departments. The success of the CalID fingerprint system in identifying Ramirez demonstrated the value of technological advances in criminal investigation. Communities recognized the power of collective action. The residents who captured Ramirez showed that citizens could play a crucial role in public safety when properly informed and motivated. For the survivors and families of victims, the end of the trial brought mixed emotion. While justice had been served in the legal sense, nothing could undo the trauma they had experienced. Many struggled with survivors' guilt, PTSD, and the fundamental loss of feeling safe in their own homes. Support groups formed, bringing together those affected by the Night Stalker's crimes. These groups provided not just emotional support, but also advocated for victims' rights and better resources for those affected by violent crime. Their activism contributed to improvements in victim services and compensation programs. The psychological impact on Los Angeles was profound and long-lasting. The Night Stalker case changed how people thought about home security and personal safety. It shattered the illusion that locked doors and good neighborhoods provided absolute protection. The randomness of the attacks forced people to confront the reality that violence could touch anyone, regardless of their precautions or social status. This led to permanent changes in behavior. Many residents developed habits of checking locks multiple times, installing security systems, and maintaining heightened awareness of their surroundings that persisted long after Ramirez's capture. Richard Ramirez spent 23 years on death row, never expressing remorse for his crimes. He maintained a disturbing celebrity status among certain subcultures, receiving letters and visits from admirers, and even marrying a woman named Doreen Liao in 1996. While imprisoned, he continued to file appeals and maintained his Satanist persona until the end. On June 7, 2013, Ramirez died of complications from lymphoma at Marin General Hospital, avoiding the execution chamber but never escaping the consequences of his actions. His death brought a final closure to many survivors and families, though the scars of his crimes remain. The legacy of the Night Stalker case extends beyond the immediate victims and continues to influence how we think about personal safety and crime prevention. The case demonstrated that evil can manifest in unexpected ways and that traditional profiling methods don't always apply. Ramirez didn't fit the typical serial killer profile in many ways. His victims varied widely in age, gender, and socioeconomic status. His crimes crossed racial and neighborhood boundaries that often limit criminal activity. This unpredictability made him particularly terrifying, but also provided important lessons for law enforcement and the public. Looking back at the Night Stalker case provides crucial lessons for personal safety that remain relevant today. The most important awareness message from this case is that home security requires constant vigilance and multiple layers of protection. Always lock all windows and doors, even on upper floors. Ramirez often entered through unlocked second-story windows that residents assumed were safe. Install quality deadbolts and consider reinforcing door frames and window locks. Motion sensor lights around your property can deter intruders who rely on darkness for cover. Security systems have become much more affordable and sophisticated since 1985, and even basic systems can provide both deterrence and early warning. Beyond physical security measures, awareness of your surroundings is crucial. Notice unfamiliar vehicles in your neighborhood, especially those that appear multiple times or at odd hours. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Many of Ramirez's victims reported feeling uneasy in the days before they were attacked, but dismissed their concerns. Create a safety network with neighbors where you look out for each other and report suspicious activity. This community vigilance was ultimately what led to Ramirez's capture, and it remains one of the most effective crime prevention tools available. Personal habits also matter significantly for safety. Vary your routine, so potential stalkers cannot easily predict when you'll be home or away. Be cautious about what information you share publicly, especially on social media, which can provide criminals with details about your schedule, possessions, and home layout. Keep your property well maintained. Overgrown bushes and broken lights signal vulnerability to predators. Consider taking self-defense classes, not just for physical techniques, but for the confidence and awareness they build. Have emergency plans and ensure all family members know what to do if they suspect an intruder. For those living alone, additional precautions are wise. Make your home appear occupied even when you're away by using timers on lights and electronics. Consider getting a dog or even just a beware of dog sign as a deterrent. Keep your phone charged and accessible at night. Know your neighbors and establish check-in systems with friends or family. Don't advertise that you live alone. Use we instead of I when talking to service people or delivery personnel who come to your home. Be especially careful about who you allow inside for repairs or services, always verifying their identity and preferably having someone else present. The digital age has added new dimensions to personal safety that weren't factors in 1985. Be extremely careful about location sharing on social media and apps. Stalkers can use seemingly innocent information to track patterns and identify vulnerability. Use privacy settings aggressively and be selective about who has access to your personal information. Be aware that modern criminals often conduct surveillance through social media before selecting victims. Regular digital hygiene, updating passwords, checking privacy settings, being cautious about what you post is now as important as physical security measures. Perhaps most importantly, never ignore or minimize threatening behavior. If someone makes you uncomfortable, trust that feeling and take action. Document any suspicious incidents, even if they seem minor at the time. Report concerns to law enforcement, even if you're not sure a crime has been committed. Many of Ramirez's victims had noticed suspicious activity but didn't report it, thinking they were overreacting. It's better to err on the side of caution. Law enforcement would rather investigate a false alarm than arrive after a tragedy. Your safety and peace of mind are worth any temporary embarrassment from being wrong. The Night Stalker case also highlights the importance of community solidarity in fighting crime. The residents who captured Ramirez demonstrated that ordinary citizens, when informed and united, can be powerful forces for justice. Stay engaged with your community through neighborhood watch programs, community policing initiatives, and local safety networks. Share information about crime trends and safety tips with neighbors. Look out for vulnerable community members, the elderly, those living alone, people with disabilities who might need extra support or protection. Crime thrives in isolation and secrecy. Community connection and communication are powerful deterrents. Remember that while cases like the Night Stalker are terrifying, they are also extremely rare. The goal of understanding these cases is not to live in fear, but to live with informed awareness. Most people will never encounter a predator like Richard Ramirez, but the safety habits developed in response to such cases can prevent many other types of crimes. Common sense precautions, maintained consistently, provide strong protection against most criminal threats. The key is making safety a habit rather than a response to fear. Integrating protective behaviors into your daily routine until they become second nature. The story of Richard Ramirez and the terror he brought to Los Angeles serves as a dark reminder that evil exists in our world, sometimes in forms we don't expect or fully understand, but it also demonstrates the power of human resilience, community action, and determined law enforcement. The capture of the Night Stalker wasn't accomplished by any single hero, but by the combined efforts of dedicated detectives, brave survivors who provided crucial testimony, and ordinary citizens who refused to be victims. Their courage transformed a summer of fear into a lesson in collective strength that continues to inspire and inform our approach to public safety today. Stay alert, trust your instincts, maintain strong security habits, build connections with your community, and never hesitate to report suspicious activity. These simple actions can make the difference between becoming a victim and staying safe in an unpredictable world.